Let's go ahead and begin the House Education Administration Committee. Members, we have a full calendar. We'll call the roll first, then I recognize you. We have a full calendar of 40 bills approximately, and so we're going to get down to business here shortly. Before that, Madam, could we call the roll?
Representatives Baum, Bulso, Butler, Sapicki, Fritz, Gant, Gillespie, Haston, Hurt, Jones, Lafferty, Love, McKenzie, Parkinson, Reagan, Ritchie, Stevens, Warner, Vice Chairman Slater, Chairman White.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Members, we'll start out. If anyone has a recognition announcement you'd like to make, Representative Parkinson, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We got some distinguished firefighter, y'all. Distinguished individuals in here. And if you stand up as I call your name, the city council chair for Memphis, Mr. Councilman Martavius Jones, the vice chair, the distinguished J.B. Smiley, and our wonderful county commissioner, Brittany Thornton. And if y'all will please give them a warm welcome, make them feel like they're welcome here. We appreciate you being here.
Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman, and I would like to recognize previous Senator, a good buddy, Mr. Overby, sitting in the second row there, served a lot of time down here in the House and in the Senate, and a great constituent back there in the district.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to recognize First Sergeant John Forgety. He's a former member here. I had the great honor to serve with that fighting cavalryman in Iraq. Oh!
So glad to have you. Also, we have Representative Stevens. You recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two special guests from Rutherford County today, County Commissioner Phil Wilson and his wife, Natalie. And Commissioner Wilson is the vice chair of the Health and Education Committee there. So let's make them welcome.
And I'd also like to recognize today we have representatives from the Boys and Girls Club, Save the Children United Way, and the Tennessee After School Network are here from across the state, raising awareness about the importance of after-school programs and their impact on children and youth. So, y'all raise your hand. Where are you in here yet? They may be floating around and be in here shortly. Thank you, Representative Moody. I think, are you representing that group here today? Yeah, they gave us all socks yesterday. Members, before we get to the calendar, I always like to start our committee out because the role that we play is very important and we need guidance. So I'm going to ask Representative Harold Love, would you open us up in a prayer?
Let us pray. God, we thank you for this day's rising up and going out. We thank you, God, for the privilege to be able to serve, to represent our various communities. We ask, oh God, that you would give us open ears and hearts, that we would hear each other and we would allow ourselves to embrace all 95 of our counties and allow us, oh God, to deliberate in a meaningful manner that is going to bring us to a resolution and solutions that will be for the betterment of all of our citizens. It's our prayer in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Representative Jones, you're recognized to recognize someone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just saw a very special eighth grade student who I met with today, and some of the members of the committee met with, Diarion Carey, who's here today from East Magnet Middle School, and his eighth grade math teacher, Miss Suzanne Daniel. We had a really great meeting, and I know Representative Fritz was very impressed when he recognized his medal that he was wearing. And so I just want to welcome this very special eighth grader. I know he'll be sitting up in one of these seats in the near future, so welcome him. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee, we have a full calendar to begin with. Before we start, items 13, House Bill 648 is off notice. Item 14, House Bill 649 is off notice. These are both by Representative Raper. And item 27, House Bill 1165 by Representative Russell is off notice. To begin with, members, item number 1 on your calendar is rolled 2 weeks. Item number 2, House Bill 1214, is rolled 1 week. That brings us to item number 3, House Bill 391 by Representative Sapicki. You are recognized. You have a motion and a second. Any amendments?
No, sir.
No amendments. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this is a bill that we're bringing back from last year. Got behind the budget and finance. We've worked on this bill before, and I'm going to just restate what it is and hopefully get your support again. What this does is, and I first want to give a big shout out to TBR and THEC for working together on this bill to get the language into proper form, requires the Tennessee Board of Regents to develop and administer a 2-year pilot program beginning in academic year 23-24 for the purpose of awarding grants to students enrolled in non-degree workforce training programs identified by TBR, outlines specific qualifications for student grant eligibility, requires grant amounts not to exceed the cost of tuition and mandatory fees, and requires TBR to collect and analyze certain data throughout the pilot program and submit the outcome of such data to the Higher Education Commission, the Education Committee of the Senate, and to the Education Committees of the House of Representatives no later than June 30th of 2025. And basically, Mr. Chairman, one of the questions people ask me is how are they going to identify those different workforce requirements across the state of Tennessee to make sure that all of our community colleges are unique to their area. And what the hope is that TBR uses the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development as a resource. That workforce needs identified through the labor data would be identified, so training programs for in-demand occupations with a market need lead to a quality non-degree credential that equates to a job, meeting the needs of the greater workforce. In demand occupations are listed that require more than short-term on-the-job training, expected to have positive job growth, expected to be in demand with employers, and forecasted to have at least 10 annual average job openings in the area. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand to answer the questions.
Thank you, members. With that explanation from the Representative Sapicki, any questions on his bill 391? Question been called. Any objection? All those in favor of moving House Bill 391 out of government ops, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Brings us to item number 4, House Bill 723, Representative Halsey. We have a motion and a second. Any amendment on your bill, sir?
No, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, you're recognized. We have a motion and a second already. Representative Halsey, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you. Under existing law right now, if you're a retired police officer and you work at an institution of higher learning, you can carry a handgun if you're retired in good standing, and you can if you work full time at the university. I don't know why we wrote it that way, but we did. But this bill just says you can also carry if you're retired law enforcement in good standing and you're working part-time at institutions of higher learning, because most of the time retired police are not working full-time at any other job.
And that's the explanation from Representative Halsey. Any questions on this particular bill from the members? Representative McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the sponsor, I definitely understand the need and genesis of this bill. But one of the things, and probably the thought for full-time employees, is that they're full-time employees and they're probably getting the training and update. As you said, we pass a lot of laws here and things change every year. So are there any provisions in this bill that says these part-time security officers need to have had some training and updates on the current laws?
You're recognized.
Thank you. This bill doesn't address that, but I can tell you retired officers who either carry a LEOSA or a permit like a LEOSA, they have to qualify every year anyway and go through that kind of training.
Any follow-up?
Yes.
Yes, you're recognized.
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. And thank you for that. That definitely gives me a much greater degree of comfort. And coming from you, being a law enforcement, a retired person, that you would know. So most, if not all officers who wish to continue on in their field of study or their career path, they keep these trainings current?
They do. And actually, almost every department has a retired officers group that meets once a year and qualifies on a firearms range and goes through firearms training. Just a refresher.
Let's go to Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor. I think I understand what you're doing. My question is, if the retired officer is employed by the LEA, are we talking about LEAs or higher ed?
Higher ed.
Okay, disregard my, well, let me ask this. If they're employed by higher ed as a professor, would they be able to go armed in the classroom under this law?
They could, but under existing law, if you're a staff or faculty and you got a enhanced permit, you can go armed in the classroom as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you.
Members, anyone else? Question? Okay, can I ask one question for, okay. Representative Hosley, did you retire in good standing?
It depends on who you talk to. I was there so long, at 36 years, they told me to leave. So
Yeah.
I guess that's good standing.
Okay, the Representative Love, did you want to be recognized before we move on?
Yes, sir. Just had a question. Did you ask your question?
It was called, but Chairman Reagan withdrew.
Well, I
You're-
thought you had a question. Okay.
You're recognized.
So under this proposal, part-time faculty would be adjuncts also, correct?
Well,
You're recognized.
that's correct. This bill specifically just deals, though, with retired officers who are working part-time at the higher ed as an adjunct or anything else.
Right. So I'm saying a retired police officer, law enforcement officer, who gets hired at a university to be an adjunct professor, if this passes, will be able to carry.
Yes, he could carry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chairman Reagan? The question's been
Good, thank you.
called. Any objection to the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving House Bill 723 out to calendar and rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Committee.
Thank you. Item 5, House Bill 549 by Representative Harris. You got a motion and a second, sir. Any amendments on your bill?
Thank you, Chairman. No amendments on this bill.
Okay, you're recognized to explain 549.
All right. So House Bill 549 simply would exempt a governing board of a public institute of higher education from the requirements to promulgate rules to establish traffic and parking regulations. Many of you who were on the Gov Ops Committee last year remember us discussing with our universities when they came forward. They were concerned. We had concern with why they were actually coming forward. So this is something that Senator Roberts and a few others had mentioned. So we're just trying to make sure that they don't have to come before us to talk about their parking passes.
Something they asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, members, Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the sponsor, I have some concerns with this in that in the UAPA that you cited, as a generality, institutions within the wiring diagram can change whatever they want to via policy. We in the General Assembly don't have to be involved in that. However, when they're charging the public money or doing things that affect the public, we do require rules. So if we were saying that the parking fee, if someone parks in the wrong place and they get a parking fee or parking fine on this, and they haven't made the rules, so how are you going to square that with the idea that they're affecting a member of the public?
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. And so with this one, the wording just changed from and to or. And I can actually, if we could go out of to ask legal in regards to that as well, that'd be perfect.
Legal. We're out of session and we will get a response from legal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. What the bill is doing is creating an exemption under the definition for role in the UAPA.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, legal. That I understand that. The question that I have, though, is the legal principle involved here of allowing a university to charge someone who is not a member of their faculty and staff or a student a fee or a fine as a member of the general public. They have no law enforcement capability other than within their own boundaries. So how does that square with the, I believe it's Title 4, Chapter 5, in the definition, subparagraph 10, subparagraph 12?
Thank you. And that, the legals tell me that that is a question for the sponsor of the bill. So we're back in session. We're back out of session. Back in session. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. And so
Okay, hang on one second. The question has been called by Representative Parkinson. Any objections to the question?
Mr. Chair, there was a question on the floor.
Right, there was a question on the floor. So could you withdraw your question? Okay, Representative Harris, would you respond to Chairman Reagan's question?
thank you, Chairman. And so sponsor, this bill technically would not affect that. This is specifically just so that they don't have to come before us to talk about the issues of like their parking hang tags and other things dealing with their parking. The security of that is probably in a different piece of legislation, not in this.
You're recognized, Chairman Reagan.
Follow up. Sorry, I have to disagree with you on that. Anytime that you have an institution that can fine somebody, as in take their money, we are talking about something that is outside of that definition that I cited. If we do not require them to come before this body to present their parking regulations, as trivial as that sounds, then they shouldn't be allowed to take a citizen's money under any circumstance, whether they parked illegally or not. Now, if that campus is in a city and the city police issue a ticket, that's all fine and good. But if you've got the campus police force, which has no jurisdiction outside of the body that we're talking about, I don't believe you can do that without saying that we're allowing the universities to levy fines, penalties, if you will, against citizens that are not part of their organization.
Representative Harris, would you like to respond?
So in order for me to be able to get more clarity to what Representative Reagan is mentioning, let's roll this bill just 1 week and so we can.
Thank you,
be able to
sir.
have
We can talk.
Conversation about that. Yes.
Without objection, House Bill 549 is rolled for 1 week.
Yeah, thank you.
Item 6, House Bill 1086 by Chairman Baum.
Thank you, Chairman White.
You have a motion, a second. I see you have an amendment or amendments.
Yes, the latest amendment is 5134.
Got a motion on on Amendment 5134, which rewrites the bill. Committee, any objection to adding the amendment so we can have proper discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adding 5134 to House Bill 1086 indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is now before us in proper order. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman White. This is a bill that revises and clarifies various parts of the code that concern charter schools. There's 6 different parts to the bill. Some are more major than others. The first one says that when a charter school application is being reviewed, the LEA that's reviewing it should consider the performance of other charter schools operated by that charter school entity if they exist. The second part of the bill says that if the school district changes the grade bands, that it notify the charter school within 120 days before the grade band changes would go into effect. This would be like if, I guess, 6th grade were moved from elementary school to middle school. The third section concerns out-of-district enrollment. The bill with the current amendment says that if a district allows its students to enroll in a neighboring district, that its students can enroll in a neighboring charter school or a charter school in a neighboring district. However, if an LEA prohibits that, then it would be prohibited for the students to enroll in a charter school in a neighboring district. In addition, this third section places a cap of 25% on the number of students that can enroll in a charter school in a neighboring district. First, the seats in the charter school must be filled by students within the district. If seats remain, then students could be enrolled in the charter school, assuming that the LEA has a policy allowing that, but not so many students as to constitute more than 25% of that school's student body. Okay, the fourth section has to do with preferences for students. This section says that a charter school may give preferences to certain kinds of students, economically disadvantaged students, homeless students, foster students, students eligible for free or reduced lunches. Also, the charter school can give preferences for students who are the children of that charter school's staff members, either a teacher or another staff member at the school. The fifth section of the bill addresses what procedures should be followed if a charter school is not complying with policies. This section of the bill says that the LEA must notify the charter school that it is not in compliance and must have a progressive intervention policy that will include an opportunity for the charter school to make corrections and changes to move into compliance. The LEA may have a corrective actions plan itself, but that these things, this charter school must have an opportunity to make these changes before the charter school could be revoked. Then if the charter school is revoked, the LEA must notify the State Department of Education within 10 days, and then the State Department of Education has 10 days to review that revocation, and the Charter School Commission would have the opportunity to overturn that or to uphold it. And then the sixth and final section changes the definition of directory information to include electronic mail addresses, email addresses. Okay, so that's the 6 sections, and I can talk about
Okay,
different parts of those sections, whichever ones you're interested in.
with that explanation from Chairman Baum, Representative McKenzie, you recognize first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think I'm in section 3, but what I'll say at the beginning, there's a whole lot to this bill, and it makes it a little difficult to be enthusiastic about all of it. But my concern, I think, is section 3 that deals with the people outside the school, the LEA, but it's not really LEA. So my question to you is, if a charter is a state endowed charter school, would it be the state that determines whether they can take outside students or not?
Chairman Baum.
There are 15 or 16 charter schools that are authorized with the Charter School Commission and are not associated with an LEA. What this bill says is that students could enroll outside of district if the LEA already permits that. Now, your question was about what about those charter schools that aren't with an LEA, they're with the commission. Those students would have to follow the commission's policy. The commission would have to establish a policy of whether it's permitted or not, and presumably that policy would have to be agreed upon between the commission and each other LEA as to whether a student could cross district lines from, I guess, the commission's district to a charter school in a specific LEA.
Follow up?
Yes, thank you. You know, that's what I don't know if that's the case or not, because the statewide charter commission is just that, it's a statewide entity. I don't know if, I think what I heard you saying is they only get to control, send people from schools within their purview, but I don't know if that's the case. And if it's not written, I'm assuming that future legislation or future policies could allow them to place students. And that's my concern, is that if this statewide authorizer is placing students in holes somewhere, that to me can be very problematic. Again, there's so much to this bill, but that piece of it I struggle with. Could you give me some assurances that in code today that can't happen?
Let me see if I can respond this way. The state authorizer, when a charter school is authorized by the commission, that commission has authorized charter schools that have students, and so the students that are under the commission's purview are really already in charter schools.
Follow up?
And so there wouldn't necessarily be I don't think there would be much reason for a student to want to go from from one charter school authorized by the commission to a charter school in a different district. I guess it theoretically could happen, but these are not students that would be moving from a school in one district to a charter school in a different district. The students that are under the purview of the commission are already in charter schools that are authorized by the commission.
Does that answer your question? Any follow-up?
It didn't really answer my question, but I don't have any more follow-up.
Okay, Representative Parkinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I got a question kind of along the same lines. I think mine is, overall do all of these apply to the 2 state-run school districts? And before we answer that, if Mr. Chair, if you're okay with it, if we can go out of session with legal, because I would like to see if the Tennessee Achievement School District is designated as an LEA itself, or the Charter Commission is designated as an LEA. So I think we need to define those if we can.
Okay, without objection, we're out of session for legal.
Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services, TCA Section 4913-104 defines authorizer as a local board of education, Tennessee Public Charter School Commission, or the Achievement School District.
You have a question for legal?
I do. I couldn't hardly hear her.
You mind repeating that one more time?
Yes, the definition of authorizer is a local board of education, a Tennessee Public Charter School Commission, or Achievement School District. The amendment in Section 3 is if a public charter school's authorizer has a policy.
You recognize, you got a question for legal, or we need to go back in session?
Just a quick question for legal. In layman's terms, would that be considered an LEA?
Yes, but the definition is authorizer, and that's the term that is used. So that's what's defining as an authorizer, and an ASD is an authorizer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take the yes on the front end. And if we can go back in session, I just have a question for the sponsor.
Without objection, we're back in session. You recognize Rep. Parkinson.
Thank you. And Mr. Sponsor, thank you. So will all of these rules apply, since we've defined the 2 state-run school districts as LEAs? Will all of these rules apply to the state-run school districts also?
Yes, it sounds like they will apply to me, but let me back up for just a second and say that what this bill does is it says that if an LEA permits its students to attend school across district lines, then its students can enroll in a charter school across district lines. But if an LEA prohibits that of its students, then its students would be prohibited from crossing district lines to enroll in a charter school. So really, this legislation just backs up what's being already done at the local level. If the LEA allows it, then it's going to be allowed for charter school students as well. If the LEA doesn't already allow it, then it's not going to be permitted for charter school students. And then in addition to that, where it is allowed, it caps this enrollment at 25% of the charter school student body.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for that, Mr. Sponsor. And that was, I don't have super concerns about the bill. I just want to make sure that, that all laws it's a pretty big bill. So all sections of your bill would apply to all of those LEAs that have these schools. And especially when I was looking at Section 6, and what the, when there are hiccups, that I'm trying to get back to it. It's a long bill, excuse me. It's pages. I'm sorry, I'm in 5 now. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, Section 6, where it talks about, these schools being out of compliance. And so, some of the state-run schools can be out of compliance too. And so, they are to adhere to the same rules that you have inside of your bill, correct?
Yes, and I think what the bill does is it establishes procedures for what should occur if a charter school is out of compliance. It just specifies that the charter school needs to receive notification that they're out of compliance in the event that they don't know. And then once they receive that notification, they have a certain period of time to take corrective action before their charter would be revoked.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my concern was in section 4, I believe it's subparagraph 5, with the use of word migrant. I know that that's used elsewhere in the code. The question that I have is, does this apply to those children who are here in our state, our nation illegally?
You recognize?
Chairman Reagan, I don't know what the answer to that is. I would imagine that the students in this bill would be handled the same way they would be under other parts of the statute. So that if an illegal migrant student has the ability to enroll in any school in a district, then they have the ability to enroll in a charter school and would be governed by these procedures as well.
Follow up.
Yes, but this paragraph is giving preference, is it not? Is it not aligning the preferences?
It does. The bill allows the charter school to give preferences to certain students or certain kinds of students. And again, these include economically disadvantaged students, homeless, foster, runaway, migrant students. Doesn't really specify whether they're legal or illegal migrant students. And so I don't know that that was contemplated in this bill.
You recognize?
Thank you. And I'd like to go on record for the purposes of stating that I do not believe that we should be giving migrant, those that are here illegally, who have violated our laws, or their parents have violated our laws to bring them here, preference over anybody. The idea that they are here and we by law are obligated to give them an education is something the Supreme Court has said we have to do. Therefore, we will do it. But I object heartily to the idea that we give them preference for anything. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman. Any further discussion, or Representative Baum, would you like to respond to anything at this point? Representative Fritz, you have your hand up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is somewhat of a piggyback to my counterpart from Anderson County. And we asked a question on non-resident on another bill that we're going to hear. And as I recall, the answer from legal was there was no definition of such. And I would just ask, do we think it's a good idea that we add that definition in? I too would agree with the gentleman from Anderson County that we shouldn't give preference to non-Americans over Americans. And so perhaps clarifying that helps with who we would indeed under this law that's proposed, give preference to.
Thank you, Chairman Vaughn.
I think that's point well taken. I would agree with you both on that.
Chairman Sapicki.
And Chairman, maybe a question for legal and obviously for the bill sponsor here. I think everybody else seems to be okay with most of the language here, but that migrant thing may have some of us hung up a little bit. Is there a way to is that a minor correction, or would that be a major correction?
Let me check with legal.
Thank you.
Legal's telling me, and I agree, we have our rules. It's best not to do any kind of verbal amendment on the fly. It's best to roll the bill and get it in proper order before we move on. You recognize?
So I guess the issue I bring up is this is creating a extra avenue above what we provide for migrant workers now based off of federal law that they're entitled to a public education. But being able to select them over other individuals, I think that might go a little far. And Representative Baum, it's up to you, sir. It's your bill, but maybe it would be possibly more favorable for the committee if you could just roll it a week and bring this back with that section possibly taken out.
Before we go there, we do have one person who's requested to speak on this bill from the Charter Center. Ms. Fiveash, would you mind coming up and maybe give us a little clarity also? Before we entertain that motion, Chairman Sapicki. Without objection, we're out of session. Ms. Fiveash, if you will recognize yourself for the video stream, and you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Elizabeth Fiveash with the Tennessee Charter School Center. The preference that is in the legislation is for economically disadvantaged students. And that definition is only citing what is currently in code for economically disadvantaged students. So it is not creating a new definition. Those students would already qualify under another section of code, actually under the TISA legislation that you all passed. So it's only referencing statute that already exists.
Chairman Sapicki, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I understand that portion of code dealing with normal K through 12 education, providing a education for those students. But this Representative Baum's legislation tends to ask creating preferential treatment for something outside of the K through 12 system that's not normally available to these students. Could we not still meet the obligation of the law by allowing those students to participate in normal K through 12 and then possibly give them an avenue after all other things have been exhausted for those kids that want to attend? Could we make that a limiting factor just for this bill because it's giving a student something above and beyond K through 12, an option?
Ms. Fiveash.
And it might be a legal question. I don't know.
So this is a K through 12 option, and it's a preference in the enrollment lottery for if a student qualifies as economically disadvantaged. So a charter school will not have any visibility into their status as a legal citizen. That will not come into play. It's only if they qualify as economically disadvantaged.
Chairman Reagan, and then I have a comment. Chairman Reagan.
Thank you. If what you have said is just true, then why do we identify migrant at all?
Again, that's the definition that is already in code, and that is in line with the federal definition for direct certification, which is what Tennessee uses to identify economically disadvantaged students. So it's in line with what the federal government definition.
Follow up, please.
You may.
You're making a circular argument. That is to say, you're saying a migrant is economically disadvantaged, and I will not argue with that. If we just say economically disadvantaged, there's no reason to add the word migrant, is there?
No, and I mean, I don't have the language in front of me, but the intent was just to mirror the definition that is already in code. So if you want to, I mean, it's multiple places in code. Again, Tennessee uses direct certification, and students that meet one of those categories are unilaterally certified. So migrant doesn't necessarily mean that a student is undocumented.
If you want to follow up.
The question is still on the table. If they are economically disadvantaged, why do we identify them as migrant? It's unnecessary, and in fact, it does identify their status here as illegal. By definition, a migrant comes from somewhere else.
If I, Ms. Fiveash, if I can add this, in going back in my memory, everything in Representative Baum's bill, as far as enrollment, is already in code. As a matter of fact, when we wrote the TISA language on how we fund schools, it's the same language. It's a federal law backed up by the Supreme Court. It's not changing anything other than what we already are. So I think we're kind of getting off on a word. And so the federal law and Supreme Court already prohibit this, was in law. And actually, you're not able to define non-resident here at the risk of being out of state. So anyway, everything we've got in place right now in code as far as enrollment's already in place. So Representative Baum's bill doesn't violate any of that.
That's correct. It's not creating any new definition for economically disadvantaged students.
Chairman Reagan?
Thank you. Ms. Fiveash, again, if they are economically disadvantaged, why do we need to put the word migrant there?
So I'm trying to be as non-circular as I can be. So for Tennessee, how we and this is under the TISA law, how we identify economically disadvantaged is through direct certification. That process includes students who or their families qualify for SNAP or TANF, and students who are homeless, migrant, runaway. Those are federal terms that are used. We're not creating, and under federal law, those students are directly certified, which is then what Tennessee uses to define economically disadvantaged. So does that make sense?
You recognize?
In the normal circumstances, yes, and I pulled up the code to which you're referenced. We're talking about giving preference here. This bill gives preference, and it specifically identifies preference to a group of people who are here illegally. Now, if we just say economically disadvantaged and say that other circumstances will identify a migrant, if they're economically disadvantaged, I'll be content to let it sit. But when we specifically say the word migrant as a preference, I think we've gone a step too far there.
Okay. I don't believe it is a preference for, again, I don't have the language directly in front of me, but the preference is not for migrant students. It is for economically disadvantaged students. And it is migrant students in Tennessee qualify, if they meet the federal definition of a migrant student, they unilaterally qualify to be economically disadvantaged.
Mr. Chair, follow up, please.
You may follow up.
Since you don't have the code in front of you, specifically, let me read it to you.
Okay.
It says a public charter school may give enrollment preference to, economically disadvantaged students as defined in Tennessee's Every Student Succeeds Act, plan established pursuant to Every Student Succeed Act 20 USC 663-1 in sequence, homeless, foster, runaway, or migrant students. So the idea that I'm getting at is, I just read the first sentence, may give enrollment preference. We are giving preference to people who have broken our law.
So the term migrant is not related to their citizenship status.
What is it related to then?
So I can go pull up the definition if you'd like me to.
I'm looking at it.
The federal definition, if you look under the federal law for migrant students, it has to do with their mobility, not their documentation status.
Chairman Reagan, may I read this to you?
I don't think this is solving the issue, sir, so I'll stop questioning.
Okay, let me just read this to the committee. This is in code in the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, which is a federal law. Economically disadvantaged means, as defined in Tennessee Every Student Succeeds Act, as a plan established pursuant to the federal Every Student Succeeds Act, defines economically disadvantaged as homeless, foster, runaway, migrant student, or a student eligible for free or reduced lunch, school meals, or milk through the direct certification eligibility guidelines established pursuant to U.S. Code. That is the definition already in there. So I think we're playing on words. Your concern is preference. Chairman Baum, do you have any response? I don't know if we're having a word mismatch. Any further discussion from Ms. Five Ash? Seeing none, we're back in session. Representative Bond, would you like to respond, or I can recognize Representative Parkinson?
I don't know that I've got any advice. If Chairman Reagan would be comfortable qualifying that word, then that's fine with me. On the other hand, it may be that these are a set of words and phrases that are used in many places in the code, and it doesn't pertain to illegal migrants. That I just don't know. It's a legal question.
My response is already in code, and it's a cross-reference to existing federal and state laws already. So I think we just kind of got maybe a play on words right here, right now. Representative Parks, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, probably. I think I understand Chairman Reagan's argument, but I think we'd have to go out of session to legal to define the term migrant, and that might help us with the chairman's argument. What
It's economically disadvantaged. It's a term that in federal law.
Right, but the term, the definition of the word migrant, that's what I'm looking for.
We're out of session, legal.
Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. State law does not define migrant in Title 49, but the general term of migrant is a person who moves from one place to another.
Follow up.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And that's, I think that's the point, that, you know, a migrant doesn't necessarily mean that they're here illegally. It's a person that moves from, like you have migrant farmers, you have migrant, you know, individuals. I almost cursed. I was a migrant because we were unstable. We moved from place to place. And so, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're illegal. But apparently we need to define the word migrant, Chairman, in the code, so we all understand what a migrant is.
Okay, thank you. We are back in session. The question's been called on the bill. Any objection to the question? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving House Bill 1086 by Chairman Baum out to calendar rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Great, good discussion. Item 7 by Chairman Bond, House Bill 644. You're recognized.
Okay, you're going to be delighted with this bill. It's much more simple.
You got a motion second, and I do not see any amendment on this.
No, I don't think there's any amendments.
Okay, you recognize to explain the bill.
This is a bill that would require the Tennessee Financial Literacy Commission to study the various financial literacy programs we have in our state to gauge their effectiveness, and to examine and study the financial literacy programs in other states to gauge their effectiveness so that we can promote financial literacy in this state. And in addition to that, this bill names April Financial Literacy Month.
With that explanation, the question's been called for. Any objection to the question? All those in favor of moving House Bill 644 out to calendar rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Moves out, sir. Brings us to item number 8. Representative Love.
Mr. Chair, I know I'm out of order, but before they leave the room, I would like to recognize teachers from Hunters Lane, Candy Wilson, and Danielle Cooper. And my niece, school board member, Christian Buggs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome. We appreciate y'all being here. Item number 8, House Bill 306 by Representative Bolso. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please roll that bill 1 week.
Item number 8, 306 is rolled 1 week. Item number 9, House Bill 459 by Representative Slater. Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion is second. Let's keep moving. Representative Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. The purpose of this bill is to keep criminals out of the classroom. As you are aware, the State Board of Education is responsible for issuing, denying, and revoking educator licenses. Currently, the board is preventing those guilty of certain crimes from obtaining licenses and permits using current state board rules. This bill will codify this process, and the State Board of Education is in favor of this legislation. With that, I urge you to vote in favor of House Bill 459.
With that explanation, members, questions of the sponsor? Question been called. All those without objection, all those in favor of moving House Bill 459 out to calendar rules indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 10, House Bill 529 by Representative Slater. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is an amendment on this bill that clarifies the bill.
Does it rewrite the bill or just clarify?
It does not rewrite it, but it will be helpful to introduce it when I discuss the bill.
Okay, members, it doesn't rewrite, but it will be helpful, as the representative said. Any objection to adding the amendment? The motion's been called. The question, all those in favor of adding the amendment 4195 to House Bill 529, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is now amended. You may explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. The purpose of this bill is to make the revocation of an educator's license more efficient. Currently, if an individual surrenders his or her license in a court proceeding through a plea agreement or similar agreement, the state board must also provide an adjudication. This will make the revocation automatic. The amendment puts a 5-year provision on the bill whereby an individual may appeal the revocation. The state board is in favor of this legislation. I urge you to vote in favor of House Bill 459.
With that explanation, questions?
House Bill 529.
529, yeah, House Bill 529. Members, questions on this, of the sponsor? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of House Bill 529 going out to calendar rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. The nays? The ayes have it. Moves out to calendar rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Item number 11, House Bill 426 by Representative Parkinson. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This will only be about 30
I
minutes.
need a motion second. Got a motion and a second. Do you have an amendment?
Mr. Chair, let me see. No amendment on this bill, Mr. Chair, that I can see.
I'm showing one.
You showing one? Oh, there's an amendment on this bill, Mr. Chair.
See if you got 42.
I got 4243.
Okay. Members, this does rewrite your bill?
Yes.
Okay. Members, any objection to adding the amendment for proper discussion? Do I have a motion on the amendment? We got a motion and a second. Any objection to the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of adding amendment 4243 to House Bill 426 indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You can now explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've condensed this down from 45 minutes to 45 seconds. I got this bill from the Excel in Education, Governor Jeb Bush's conference. It simply instructs the Tennessee Department of Education to report to the education committees the average TCAP scores for each school with an overlay of the average incomes for their student households in the county.
Okay, with that explanation, members. Question's been called. Do I have an objection to the question? No objections? Okay, we're now voting on House Bill 426. All those in favor of going to calendar rules indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moves out of calendar rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Item 12, House Bill 258 by Chair Lady Moody. You got a motion and a second, and you may, I don't see any amendments, so you may explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill cleans up some existing provisions. Specifically, it moves the requirement for approval of school bus safety manufacturing standards from the State Board of Education to the Department of Safety, and to ensure that the agency with the most technical knowledge is able to review and approve bus safety standards. And that's simply what it does.
Members, House Bill 258, that explanation by Chair Lady Moody. Questions to the sponsor? Hearing none. Any objection to the question? The question has been called. Without objection, all those in favor of moving House Bill 258 to calendar and rules indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You do have another one here. You want to wait or you want to go ahead and run it?
I'll wait.
Okay. Item number 13, House Bill 648 has been taken off notice. Item number 14 has been taken off notice. Item number 15, House Bill 457 by Representative Hakeem. You have a motion and a second. You may explain your bill. I do see an amendment, so.
Yes, sir. That amendment is 004714.
Does it change the wording of your bill? It's not it doesn't,
Okay.
it's not a rewrite.
No, sir.
Okay, let's talk about your bill first, and then we'll look at adding the amendment at the will of the committee. So members, we're on 457 by Representative Hakeem. Explain your bill.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. What this bill does is to enhance the safety protocols within the state guidelines for our public schools and charter schools. And when private schools are having activities on public grounds, there are rules they have to abide by. One of the things that brought this to our attention was the severe accident to Mr. Damar Hamlin, Buffalo Bills defensive back, had a cardiac incident during a professional football game. And doing some research, we found that we had a student at Gatlinburg Pittman High School, Miss Kendall Regan, girl basketball player who collapsed as she was coming off the court with a cardiac incident. And but we're glad to say that she is doing much better. This happened in January. What this bill does is to encourage coaches to complete training in physical conditioning and equipment use. It requires that coaches and teams rehearse emergency action plans, and that private schools or nonprofit organizations, if they're on public property, have to abide by these safety guidelines. I will say that we're in consultation with TSSAA, and that's where our amendment comes from. In addition to that, the director of Vanderbilt Youth Sports Health Center, Alex Diamond, also supports this initiative. This is us. They were involved in starting the Safe Stars Act, years ago, and through him, I found that the Predators and other sports entities and also other healthcare persons are in favor of this bill because of the health and safety of children 14 and under playing sports like football, basketball, where there's contact, where there's really risk. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I stand ready for questions.
Thank you, and we will entertain questions. Now, when you were discussing your bill, did you include explanation of your amendment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The amendment is 4714, and the motion's been made. Members, any objection to adding the amendment to the bill 457? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. So your bill is amended. Any questions of the sponsor of the bill? Representative Lafferty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, I was curious when you talked about being on school property. I'm aware of some groups back home that have recreational leagues, soccer, football, things like that, that aren't affiliated with the schools but use school property for games and practices and things like that. Will they be affected by this also?
It said state property, and I believe it says municipal property. So I think that would fall under these guidelines. And what we're talking about is that coaches are not required to do, but are asked to, or encouraged to deal with physical conditioning and equipment use. And but the other guidelines about cardiac incident rehearsals and things of that nature, coaches are encouraged and actually required to do so. If you are community sports entity and you are on public properties, then there are guidelines, these guidelines would affect you.
Okay. Just my,
Follow-up?
just a comment. It's my concern. There's youth sports have a hard time getting dads and stuff to come out. Oh, moms too have a hard time getting moms and dads sometimes to come out coaching. Has anybody mentioned to you any concern about the parents being, the parents that are coaches being required to go through some of these training tests, training programs?
What the section says is that where it's available, I was trying to get the direction to receive training, but where if it's available to the coaches, and I guess I use that term, not an excess burden. We're talking about them not going to have to go pay for training or anything of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, members. We also have Representative Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor, for being concerned regarding safety, for sure. Just have one question for you. It says when the sports are high risk, is there a list of sports that are that fall under the category of high risk?
Okay. Of course, in all these papers, I have it somewhere, but I can tell you football, basketball. For some reason, I think soccer was on that list. I think there's a list of about 7 sports. Lacrosse, and I apologize, I can't find that. at the
Look on
moment.
section 1 of your bill.
Sir?
Look at section 1.
Section 1. Okay, I read that later. Organized sports in which there is significant possibility for a minor who is participating in the sport to sustain serious physical injury, including but not limited to the sports of football, basketball, baseball, volleyball, soccer, hockey, cheerleading, and lacrosse.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for missing that and looking at the bill. Thank you,
Thank you,
sponsor.
sir.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sponsor, thank you for bringing the bill.
Yes, sir.
I think it's something that is going to be beneficial for our state. I do have one question, though. In your research drafting this bill, did you run across the number of youth cardiac events that occur in Tennessee by chance?
I apologize, I can't give you that number, sir.
It's all right. Thank you.
But I for my own benefit, I will have that number before, assuming we get to the floor, we will have that number.
Let me recognize Chairman Sapicki.
And I don't have so much of a question as a statement. I've coached football, youth football for a long time, and pretty much everything in here is required right now of a youth football coach. All of this training is online. It's available. Basically, the only requirement is time. But most organizations, because they're insurance providers, your coaches have to be certified in all this right now to make sure you're providing the proper coaching techniques and things like that to make sure that we're not putting a student or a athlete in risk. So I don't know if there's much different here. I think it's just pretty much that it's going to be codified now.
Yes, sir, it will be. And as was said, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Any further? Yes, you recognize, sir?
I'm just going to comment, Chairman Sapicki. Yes, a lot of it is already there, and what we try to do is enhance a few pieces of it to make it more safe for our youth.
Representative Parkinson, you have a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to thank the sponsor for bringing this bill, because as a person who is also like my colleague, I won't call his name, but like my colleague who is a big advocate and supporter of youth sports, you know, this will give additional assurances to parents you know, to those mothers and those dads who are apprehensive about letting letting their children participate in youth sports. And I think that youth sports or children's participation in youth sports helps character and to making them extremely and productive citizens. And so thank you for that. It may not seem like it's a lot, but this is a really important piece of legislation. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, members. I have no one else on the list. Anyone else have a comment? Questions been called? Without objection, all those in favor of moving House Bill 457 out to common rules indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and
Ayes
members.
have it. How about item number 16, House Bill 597 by Representative Powell? Oh, he's asked to roll that 1 week. Item 19, House Bill 520, is Representative Dixie in the room? We'll roll that to the Hill. Item number 18, House Bill 1232 by Representative Hemmer. I don't see Representative Hemmer, so we will roll that to the Hill. To the Hill. That brings us to House Bill 1411 by Representative Fritz. He is here. Down here. You're recognized, sir. Got a motion second on your bill. You do have some amendments. Which one are you looking at?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. I have the bill that, the amendment that makes the bill actually is number 5364.
Motion on the amendment.
You got a motion on the amendment 5364. It does rewrite the bill. And so any objection to adding the amendment to the bill so we can have proper discussion? You got a motion and a second. All those in favor, without objection, all those in favor of adding the amendment to House Bill 1411 indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is now in proper order. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. And I'll mention the two other amendments because one's going to play into how this discussion on this bill rolls. 5091 has already been added and included, and that was a removal of what was originally Section 1 of that bill at the request of a fellow member. Amendment 5831 is an amendment by Mr. Haston, and there's a couple words that we want to talk through on that bill, on that amendment. And I'm going to ask your permission to roll this bill in just a minute for 1 week. But I would ask your permission, Mr. Chairman and committee. We do have folks that are here to speak to the bill today. If it's permissible and appropriate, I'd like to ask those folks to go off through and allow them to speak, and then come back and address that. Roll 1 week with your permission, Chairman.
Sure. Members, any objections going out of session at the request of Representative Fritz? Hearing none. Okay. We will now, we're out of session, and I have on my list, we have DCS first, Sammy Mayfair, Doug Diamond, Jim Lehman, and Hazel O'Donnell. Y'all can come up to the front table. Anyone else? Okay, we do have, okay, Tricia Lucente. And I have those five. Are you the only one? Yeah. Okay. All right, since you're the only one here, I'm going to go ahead and bring up Shay Crowell, who has an opposing view. Shay, are you in the audience? Shay, if you could come up at the other table. Members, we are out of session. We're on Representative Fritz bill, House Bill 1411. He is going to roll this, but he has guest speakers here today, so we're going to entertain those. I'm going to start with Tricia Lucente, And you have 2 minutes. Make sure your mic is on, and if you'll identify yourself for the audience.
Hi, my name is Trisha Lucente. I am a mother from Williamson County. And good afternoon, community members. Thank you so much for having me. I've already emailed or spoken to each of you individually. However, I also wanted to speak today to support this bill and parents' rights. As a parent, I believe God gave my child directly to me, not the state. It is my job to decide what is appropriate for my child, and having an opt-in is in my best interest and the interest of my child. Schools are required to give parents notice for certain activities, surveys, and topics of instruction. However, they do not. Parents are offered the option of opting out for some things. If we are unaware, which most of the times we are, we essentially have no choice, and there is assumed approval. It is our right to choose what our children learn and participate in, and please help us protect that. The United States Supreme Court has long held that parental rights are among those fundamental liberty interests protected by the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. To wrap this up, I'd like to read a quote from the Supreme Court's decision in Parham versus J.R. The law's concept of the family rests on a presumption that parents possess what a child lacks in maturity, experience, and a capacity for judgment required for making life's difficult decisions. More importantly, historically, it has been recognized that natural bonds of affection lead parents to act in the best interests of their children. The statist notion that governmental power should supersede parental authority in all cases because some parents abuse and neglect children is repugnant to American tradition. Simply because the decision of a parent is not agreeable to a child or because it involves risk does not automatically transfer the power to make that decision from the parents to some agency or officer of the state. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Let's now go to Shay Crowell. You're recognized, ma'am. You also identify yourself.
That's it.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm Shay Crowell. I'm a 22-year education veteran from Rutherford County and Davidson County. I taught at Whites Creek, and I teach now at Riverdale. I'm also a parent of public school age kids. So I'm speaking to you today as a parent and as an educator. So thank you very much for listening to me today. I understand that this bill's intent is to reinforce parental rights. And as a parent, I'm all for that. But as an educator, I'm concerned about our students, because not every parent is a parent like the one we just heard from. Not every parent is an activist parent who will opt their children into programs, into activities. I believe that this bill, though well-intentioned, has a cost that is greater than its benefit. Opt-in policies are often harmful to the general student body, academic and educational success, and social success. Participating in extracurricular activities builds teamwork, communication, relationships, a sense of belonging, all of which help students develop socially and be successful in school. Engagement correlates to students' academic success and social success, which is something we all want here. This bill will decrease access to and participation in extracurricular activities and educational opportunities across the board by increasing barriers to participation, by burdening parents with additional paperwork to do before a child can even explore an option. It robs kids who are not like their parents of the opportunity to explore that difference. Kids whose parents are not Christian, but who would like to attend a Christ-centered gathering would need an opt-in form from their ideologically opposed parents in order to attend a Christian club meeting. A child who comes from Democratic parents would need a parent opt-in form to go to a Young Republicans club meeting after school. In the high school level, kids are going to be different from their parents, and they need opportunities to sometimes explore that difference. Clubs offer a safe, vetted environment in which kids can begin to build community and find community and social belonging, sometimes based upon those differences. This is incredibly important to these children's emotional and social and academic success. Opting in excludes kids who are from foster families sometimes, who have parents who are not interested in signing more paperwork, parents who are punitive and would use club belonging as a way to punish a child, and would prevent kids from exploring communities that they want to belong to. At the high school level, kids do not need protections like they do at the elementary school level. You don't want, two friends, one of them wants to go to the Christian club after school, and they want to bring their friend, but the friend can't go now because they don't have a parent opt-in form. Most kids who participate in extracurriculars, especially extracurriculars after school, are just following along with their friends, right? So what this does, denying this opportunity to freely associate with various groups of students, it drives kids to seek alternative time fillers away from the school, which may not be desirable to parents, definitely not desirable to the community, as they will be off campus, not school affiliated, unvetted, and not bound by educational rules and standards. Social media will become the primary informational conduit when these kids are seeking information in community. And that does not always have great consequences for us. Plus, your bill does not address the students who are 18. Will they be able to opt themselves in? Okay.
And if you don't mind, we're kind of over our time.
Thank you for your time. I
and so
appreciate it.
This bill will be at the request of the sponsor rolled 1 week. And yes, you may ask the question, Representative. The other witness, if you could come back up, please. And just keep in mind that we are going to roll this 1 week and we will have further discussion. But did want to get our guest, since they showed up today, to be Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you both for being here. My question is for the woman from Williamson County. Sorry, I didn't write your name down.
Ms. Lucente.
Ms. Lucente. Ms. Lucente, are you a part of any organizations like Moms for Liberty or Americans for Prosperity? Is that who you're connected with?
No, I have an organization called Parents Choice Tennessee, and we advocate for parents' rights.
Okay.
And I started that organization, so.
Thank you.
You have enough follow-up.
Yeah. And so with this bill, I was just trying to get some clarity. So if a parent wanted to opt their student out of TCAP, for example, which is not allowed without retaining a student, would this bill allow a parent to opt their child out of TCAP? And do you support that?
I think that, let me answer that question. That will be a question for our sponsor when we run the bill. That would not be for our guest.
Okay. Can I?
You have another question?
Thank you. Are there any particular curriculum that you have had experiences of being concerned about with your organization, Parents' Choice, like around race or around diversity? Are those some of the issues that you object to in the curriculum?
Little bit off the bill.
Mr. Chair, this is about the provision that says participate in any instruction. So it's trying to get clarity as to that provision where it says that a parent has to consent to allow the student to participate in instruction. This is about a particular type of instruction that I'm asking about. It's on the bill.
Okay, keep it tight.
Personally, my primary goal in advocating for parents' rights and my child and the children that I speak and do everything is mostly age appropriateness. So, there are so many different issues, and I think all children should learn about everything. However, there is an appropriate time when little kids learn about things and, older kids learn about things. So I think that this bill is excellent for allowing parents to include parents, because a lot of times parents are not included. So I think parents should be included and should be in a partnership with schools and teachers. And this would bring parents in.
Just have one follow-up.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chair. No other speaker was limited on the number of questions they can ask. Can you ask why I'm being limited on the number of questions I can ask for this witness? I've been quiet the whole committee, and now you're limiting my questions, but no one else had their questions limited on this committee. Can you answer why?
Yes, it's that the bill is going to be rolled, and we're going to have plenty of time for the discussion. And we are at a time factor. We got 20 more bills, so you can ask another question. It's at the will of the chair. So, but go ahead.
Thank you,
Ask your
Mr.
question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know Williamson County, everyone brags, we have the best school. That's the best school district in the state. And so my question is there anything particularly in the curriculum that you've objected to that led you to found this organization? Any particular type of instruction that you've objected to, or any books that you sought to ban that you can give us examples of, just so we can get clarity as
Okay.
to what might be?
We're gonna move on, Representative Jones. We're getting a little off. Let's wait till we get back on the bill. We're getting kind of a little bit off on some things. So on books to ban. So we're now back in
parliamentary inquiry.
You may have a parliamentary inquiry.
Again, Mr. Chair, we spent 20 minutes debating the word migrant, which had nothing to do with the bill that was sponsored a few slots ago, but again, my questions are being ruled out of order, and I'm being cut off from asking about a question pertaining to we're looking to get parental consent to allow students to participate in any instruction, activity, evaluation, assessment, or survey. So we're allowing some type of censorship. That's what I'm trying to get to in my questioning. Again, no other member of this committee has been stopped from talking, but again, the chair seeks to abuse his gavel and silence me from asking questions that are on the bill, and that is unfair.
Okay.
And I've been respectful to you, Mark, but this is not right.
Okay, Chairman White. Representative Jones. What I'm trying to do is we have a witness here. They're here expressing their belief. And we can only take our challenges so far. The questions you are asking are on the bill. Okay, the word migrant was in the bill a while ago also, so we had discussion.
And the questions were for the witness. When we were talking about migrant, we weren't asking the sponsor, we're asking the witness. So again, I'm going to let you to feel powerful today, but this is wrong.
Yeah, we're back in session. Thank you. We were now, the chairman has, the sponsor has now House Bill 1411 rolled for 1 week. We're now, members, I'm going to go back to, with your permission, I'm going to go back to item number 18 because Representative Hemmer has walked into the room, and I'd like to recognize those members out there. House Bill at 1232. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for taking me out of order. Appreciate it. I'm here today for, and if I could get I think I have an amendment.
We
to
do
the
have,
bill.
do we have a motion and a second? We have a motion. Okay, you have an amendment. You're
Great.
recognized.
Thank you, members of the committee, Mr. Chair. Purpose of this bill is to allow private universities the same opportunity as public universities to create lab or training schools, as they're called in the code. This bill authorizes local Board of Education to contract with a private college or university accredited with the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on colleges for the college or universities to maintain a lab school for grades pre-K through 12. The amendment was done at the request of the University of Memphis, who has come and has a wonderful lab school presented with us in this committee before, and to make sure that it's done in consultation with the Department of Education to ensure the language is updated to include TISA allocations and the ability to accept grants in the same manner as other states. Thank you.
Question on the amendment.
Okay, we're on the, do we add your amendment 4818? Okay.
Yes, sir.
We have a question.
Question on
And
the
your
bill.
amendment rewrites the bill. So members, since it rewrites the bill, any objection to adding the amendment to the bill? Without objection, all those in favor of adding 4818 to House Bill 1232 indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, your bill is properly amended. Did you explain your amendment in your bill at the same time?
Yes, sir.
Chairman Sapicki.
Just to make sure we don't get into an argument here, did you make sure that you talked to my colleague from Memphis about messing in his district without his approval?
Oh, well, this is no. So this has statewide applications. The members' school did such a good job at the district, in his district. We want to make sure we give every other college and university across the state the opportunity to do the same thing.
Question's been called. Any objection to the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving House Bill 1232 out to finance indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Chairman, members, committee.
Thank you. You recognize Reverend Parkinson.
Mr. Chair, we can't have a member of the majority party throwing red meat in the middle of the circle, Mr. Chair. So I'm gonna ask that he refrains from throwing red meat into the middle of the circle, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Point taken. Members, we're now on House Bill 20 by Chairman Haston, 849. You're recognized, Chairman. You got a motion second on your bill. Chairman Haston, and you do have an amendment?
Yes.
Got
I
a
believe-
motion second on your amendment,
Thank you.
rewrites the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe it's 4132.
That is correct,
It
4132
does
members.
rewrite the bill.
Since it does rewrite the bill, any objection to adding the amendment to the bill? Let me conduct the committee, please. Anyone objection to having the amendment added to the bill, 4132? Hearing none. Without the question been called, all those in favor of adding the amendment to House Bill 849 indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We're now back on your bill as amended. Chairman Haston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Rural Schools Innovation Act here creates a 2-year pilot program by which at least 2 rural school districts partner together to expand access to high-quality, robust college and career pathways opportunities. Basically, this approach would allow career-specific training that best fits an area to be able to partner together with high schools and surrounding LEAs to offer high-quality CTE career opportunities, career training opportunities. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Members, questions on House Bill 849? Hearing none. Any objection to the question? All those in favor of moving 849 out to finance indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Moves out. Members, on item number 21, I'm going to move that to 11 spaces, 433. Item number 22, I will then move 11 spaces. Item House Bill 435. Item number 23, House Bill 784, 11 spaces. And I see Chairman Lady Moody for a move on. I'm going to jump over and bring you up because we're getting short on time. And I'm going to bring you up for your bill, which is item number 24. Jump over to item number 24. Members, one second, make sure I got all my information before me. We're on House Bill 3-2. No, we're not. Wait a second. 25. Yeah, I'm moving House Bill, excuse me, let's start over. House Bill 322, item 24, moving 11 spaces. This brings us to item number 25, House Bill 329 by Chairlady Moody. You got a motion and you've got a second. Now, members, we'll take this slow so that we've got several amendments or things, so I want to do that. We have a motion second. Do you have an amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. It's 005368.
Let's see here. How about, could it be 4382? Okay, 4382. Hold on one second. I'm showing 4382.
That is correct, but I have a word correction.
Well, that is 5185.
005368.
That has not been filed before us yet.
Okay.
Chairman Sapicki?
Would that be a substantive change or is that just a clerical error?
Okay, it is the speaker's policy that we do not add any verbal amendments in committee.
Thank you.
Okay, without objection, House Bill 329 is rolled for 1 week. Chairman Faison, House Bill 1445, is he in the room?
There's nobody here.
We will roll that to the hill at this point. Item number 27, House Bill 1165 is taken off notice. Item 28 by House Bill 892 by Chairman Reedy. You got a motion and a second, and you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. This bill is adding on to the Education Bill of Rights of 2017, and it adds the director of schools as a person to whom a principal must report direct knowledge of an assault and battery or vandalism endangering life, health, or safety committed by a student on school property or receiving a report of such action, and expands the Educator Bill of Rights and establishes that an educator has the right to report students who commit offenses of assault and battery or vandalism on school property endangering the life, health, or safety of others, And two, it receives benefit, the educator receives benefits in accordance with Tennessee Code annotated 49-5-714 if the educator is a teacher who is absent from the teacher's assigned duties as a result of personal injury caused by a physical assault or other violent criminal act committed against the teacher in the course of the teacher's employment activities. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. House Bill 892, if that explanation by Representative Reedy, any questions of the sponsor? Question been called without objection. All those in favor of moving House Bill 892 out of calendar rules indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, sir. Item number 29, House Bill 559 by Representative Todd. Is Representative Todd present?
Roll to the hill.
We'll roll House Bill 559 to the Hill. And if members without objection, we'll go back to item number 26 by Leader Faison. You're on House Bill 1445. You're recognized. You've got a motion and a second on your bill. Tell us about your amendment.
Good afternoon, committee. Very good to be with you. Thank you for rolling me. Mr. Chair, there is an amendment that writes the bill.
Rewrites the bill. Item 4290 rewrites the bill. So any objection to adding the amendment to the bill for proper discussion? Without objection, all those in favor of adding, say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is properly amended. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee, several years ago, then Representative John Lundberg worked in the Pentagon. And I took my family to DC and I called him and I said, any chance of us getting a tour of the Pentagon? He's like, Jeremy, we'll do it. And he was actually full-time in the military at that moment in time. And so he took us and we did a tour of the Pentagon. One of the things that I noticed from touring with him, listening to the people we met, is the importance of security and privacy. Our government puts a huge emphasis on making sure whatever we have is secure. A few years ago, I got to be in the White House and just listen to the Secret Service and all those people. What is incredibly important to them is our security. Things that take care of America should be kept safe. One of the things I learned is that when you have an open Wi-Fi, it leaves you vulnerable to anything that's in your server. This bill has been in the news several times, not naming any social media companies. I'm just saying, with this bill, if y'all will allow us to pass it, if your social media company has ties to the government of China or to the CCP, that our higher institutions won't be able to allow them on their Wi-Fi platform. So our high institutions, any of our schools in Tennessee that Tennessee is a part of, they have Wi-Fi they provide for all their students. This would just make it to where the students could use their own data, but they could not access a social media platform that is associated at all with the Chinese government. And that's what this bill does.
That's what the bill does. For the sponsor's explanation, members, questions, comments to the sponsor. Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you. Representative Faison, would this bill ban college students from using TikTok on campus with the Wi-Fi?
If there's a social media platform such as that is any way associated with the Chinese government, they'll still be able to use their cell phone and their data to access it. They won't be able to use the college's Wi-Fi to access it.
Are you aware that access to unlimited data is a privilege that not all students can afford?
Chairman Faison.
I'm sure that there are some people who don't have unlimited data. I'm sure of that.
And so would this be unfair for those students who don't have the privilege to be able to afford unlimited data to use a social media that their peers would have access to if they are rich and can afford to use unlimited data?
Leader Faison.
This doesn't impede them from using the unlimited data on the Wi-Fi at the colleges.
Now, my question was, would it be unfair for students who don't have unlimited data that they cannot use TikTok, but their peers who have wealthy families and can afford unlimited data can use TikTok? Would that be unequal?
Chairman Faison.
I'm not into deciding what's fair and what's not fair. I'm just saying for our security and our higher education facilities that they need to be secure and not allow this on their Wi-Fi.
Anyone else want to speak on this bill? Okay, we got Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the sponsor, I had raised mine earlier. To the sponsor, are you aware that every college, public, in the state of Tennessee has a clear and distinct firewall between their university operations and the Wi-Fi that's available to the public and students?
Chairman Payson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative McKenzie, I'm aware that the state of Tennessee, our higher institutions, our federal government spends hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars monthly to keep firewalls secure. Yes, they have firewalls, but there is constant pressure from all around the world to get through firewalls, and it's something that your state spends just to keep our stuff secure in this building. So regardless if there's a firewall today, that doesn't mean the firewall is good for tomorrow.
You recognize, sir?
Thank you. Thank you for that, but I don't think it really addressed my question. What your bill does is deal with cross-contamination, I would say, let's call it that, between a student on a public or student-led Wi-Fi and university operations, as you gave the example of the White House and the security associated with that. They have one. And so like we have a public Wi-Fi in this building that is totally separate and distinct from our internal Wi-Fi. So like that on the university, I'll ask it this way. Are you aware that regardless of the threats, and there are thousands of threats daily to the university's Wi-Fi for university operations and the university's Wi-Fi for student and public, there's no interconnection between the two. And so the likelihood is zero of one network contaminating the other. Are you aware of that?
Chairman Payson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I'm told is that there's always an open door that someone can figure out, or a closed door that someone can figure out how to open. This is in layman's term, when you are using Wi-Fi. And so we're saying if you are associated with the Chinese government, you ought not be on that platform, on that Wi-Fi.
Okay, let's go to Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor. Looking at the legislation in section 1, letter A, it says a public post-secondary institution that provides internet access to students, faculty, staff, or the general public shall not allow an individual to access social media platform using the institution's network if the platform is operated or hosted by a company based in the People's Republic of China. So this is not a company that's being run by the Chinese government, but just is hosted in the country. Is that correct?
Faison.
Yes, sir.
Follow up?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The concern I have is that we have, with the evolution of social media in college, we have some colleges that actually offer a major in social media. We have there are opportunities for online gaming as an activity, as a sport. My concern is about professors who may be attempting to utilize a platform for instruction to train students on how to build social media platforms and how to build applications, and maybe wanting to use a platform as an example of how to complete their coursework, but that company may be actually based in China. Would they not be allowed to do that?
Leader Faison.
If it's associated with the People's Republic of China, the government, no, they wouldn't be able to. They'd have to use their data.
Your follow-up?
Thank you. Well, my concern is that the language is a bit broad because it doesn't just say associated with the People's Republic of China. It just says the company is based in China.
Follow up. Chairman Faison.
Representative Love, not at all to insult your intelligence, but that's the CCP and they own everything there.
Well,
You recognize?
they don't actually, because I actually buy some clothes from a company that's in China, but not run by the Chinese government.
Chairman Faison.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Okay,
you.
let's go to Representative Ritchie.
Question on the bill.
Question's been called. Any objection to the question? I do have 3 hands. So members, we will have to put on the, okay. All those in favor of the question being called, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The ayes have it. The question's been called. Debate's been cut off. We're now voting on House Bill 1445. All those in favor of moving it out to calendar and rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
The bill moves out. Did Representative Todd come in the room? House Bill 559, we've already rolled to the hill of the calendar. Item number 30, we're going to roll to the hill of the calendar. Item 31, House Bill 294 by Representative Freeman. Is he in the room? We'll roll House Bill 294 to the hill. Item number 32, House Bill 588 by Leader Gant. You ready to carry your bill?
Thank you, Chairman
You
and
got a
committee.
motion and a second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. This allows the LEA to enter into an agreement and establish an alternative virtual school for a student who has been suspended or expelled from the regular school program.
With that explanation, members, any discussion? Any objection to the question? The question has been called. All those in favor of moving House Bill 588 out to calendar rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. It moves out to calendar and rules. Okay, item number, Representative Todd, there you are. Why don't we go back, since he is here, go back to item number 29, House Bill 559 by Representative Todd. You have a motion and a second on your bill. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is fundamentally about fairness. It temporarily waives the quote prior year in public school end quote requirement for the ESA program because lawsuits locked up that program for more than 2 years. We intended to help a certain group of kids with the ESA program, and many of those have had to choose other routes for education since then, which makes them technically ineligible. This just grandfathers that group of kids in so that they're now eligible for the program since this lawsuit affected their lives.
With that explanation, any questions of the sponsor? Representative Jones?
Does this legislation impact anyone in your county?
You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. It does not. The ESA program was only for 2 counties, I believe, in the state at that time when it was passed.
What are those counties?
I believe it's Shelby and Davidson, if I remember correctly.
You're recognized.
Who asked you to bring this legislation since it does not impact your county?
You're recognized.
I honestly don't remember. It's something I firmly believe in. I was a big supporter of the ESA program, and this is something that I believe is fundamentally right for our students in our state. We have the vast majority of parents and citizens in our state want school choice, want choices for their kids, and especially those that are in the most impoverished and rough school situations in their communities.
Follow up.
With that said, none of this applies to your district though, correct?
You follow up.
Thank you, sir. It doesn't at this point in time.
Thank you.
Chairman Boso, Representative Boso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the question.
Question's been called. Any objection to the question? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor of moving House Bill 559 out to calendar and rules indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. It does move out. Let's go back to item number 33, House Bill 250. Oh, oh, good. I'm glad you're there. Let's go back to trying to catch all those who are not on the committee. What, no. Members, item 31, House Bill 294 by Representative Freeman. You got a motion and a second. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and committee. I've got two amendments.
You do. One rewrites the bill. That's 4304. We have a motion and second on the amendment. Without objection, since it does rewrite the bill, let's go ahead and add it to the bill for proper discussion. All those in favor of adding 4304 to House Bill 294 indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is amended for proper discussion. Your next amendment is really affixing the spelling error.
Yes, sir. Would you want to go ahead and put that one on, or you want me to talk about the bill as is?
Go ahead and talk about the bill. We'll get that down, then we'll come back and
Sure.
we'll fix the
Thank you.
spelling error.
Thank you, Chairman and committee. So House Bill 294 adds higher education to the groups that will put the suicide prevention hotline number on their IDs. We did it last year for K through 12. This just expands it to higher ed. And it also addresses public educate or secondary education groups that require digital student IDs. And with that, I stand ready to answer any questions.
Okay, with that, we have a question. Representative Ritchie?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, sponsor. I was just curious going through, and as you're working on the legislation, have you had a chance to find out where any of the turkeys are hiding, since that's right around the corner?
You recognize?
I have not.
Okay, we're back on, back on the bill. Members, further discussion. We do have another amendment we have to consider. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, the next amendment is 4842. The motion's been made. It fixes a, would you like to explain what it's doing, Representative Freeman?
Yeah, it fixes it should have said contact number, and the original language said contract number, so it removes an R.
Does anybody have an objection to that amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of adding 4842 to House Bill 294 indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and without objection, we will roll the two amendments into one.
Great, thank you,
Further
sir.
discussion on the bill 294. Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really had a question on that last amendment. I was trying to figure out who caught the R. Was it you?
It was me.
Okay, good job.
Further discussion. Any objection to the question? Question has already been called. All those in favor of moving House Bill 294 to counting rules indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. It does move out. Members, we're down to about 5 minutes. Is there any objection?
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Is there any objection to adjournment? Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.
I know, it'll be fine. I'm gonna do it anyway.